Hello and welcome to a little video that I didn't announce I was going to live stream. So maybe some viewers will trickle in and join me here as we go, or watch this in the future and catch whatever surprises I need to show you. But in any case, welcome back to another Spiky shape sequence secret society stream. I wanted to put celebration in there because I'm trying to always be in a celebratory mood when things go okay in my life. But celebration starts with a C and not an S, and I was trying to use alliteration. What's wrong with our language? Why can't we say it's a secret society celebration sequence and have those all start with the same letter? Now, you might think I like the letter C because my name is Combo Class here, but that's because I like the words combo and class, not because I'm a fan of the letter C. So I kind of screwed myself by having CC be the acronym of this when I'm going off on all these roasts on the letter C. And hello to everyone who has joined me. Like I said, this was unannounced, but I do have some cool stuff to share. Partially gonna just give some combo class fun updates, but I also want to draw some shapes because I've been itching to draw some star polygon-esque shapes. Now, I'm not going to call them exactly star polygons because those can be defined a few different ways. And I'm sort of making one part of some star polygons where often they're seen in a layered way, sort of like a Jewish star compared to a triangle. But we're going to be drawing our version of star polygons now that I've dropped a full episode about that on the main channel, so I don't have to worry about spoiling any secrets that are in that main channel episode. And to anyone who hasn't seen that, make sure to catch that after the stream, because although I love you all on my bonus channel here, the main channel is really my main combo class project, and all the comments on there certainly help. Now, let's take a little peek at our hellos before we dive into some explanatory intro assembly type stuff. Somebody is requesting some sacred geometry. Now, it depends how you define that, because some people go a little over the top with thinking that one pattern they find, maybe related to the golden ratio or maybe related to threes, sixes, and nines or whatever, is the key to all of nature or whatever. And math may be the key to all of nature, but it's going to be a mix of a lot of concepts. It's not going to be just about one singular trait that is considered extra holy or whatever. So the problem with sacred geometry to me is that depending how you define sacred, I would say that either you wouldn't call geometry that, or in my standard, you would call most of geometry that. So I think if we're using the word sacred, it's going to be hard not to apply that to a lot of cool math stuff. So I'm going to be a little less picky than some with what I think is magical. Um, Someone's also mentioning the 48 regular polyhedra video. A lot of people mentioned that one after I did my version that involved polyhedra in an episode. That is a cool video, but it is including a lot of types I didn't want to include because I don't consider them polyhedra because they require an infinite amount of space. They're more of a tiling. So someday I will cover those shapes, but I consider them more of tilings because you need an infinite amount of space to make them. So um, those are cool. What can tile is interesting on a very fundamental level. If you think about what can tile a 2D plane, the only regular polygons that do the trick are the triangle, the square, and the hexagon. And the hexagon is sort of a bunch of little triangles in disguise. So it's sort of mostly the triangle and the square. Now, geometry that ancient people believed was sacred, yeah, we've touched on that a little bit in things, and a lot of the ancient math that I believe will be busted out next in the class is going to be some classic problems that ancient Greeks and other societies tried to construct with straight edges and compasses that they were really into. Because it's really interesting on a lot of the classic problems that they spent years on before it was proven that it's impossible to do with a straight edge and compass. There are different reasons slightly for different ones as to like why it's impossible to construct a regular sided heptagon or why it's impossible to do these problems they call squaring the circle and doubling the cube and trisecting an arbitrary angle. So some of those are going to definitely pop up as sort of an ancient question that has some cool math as to why it's impossible. And as for the Pythagorean cult, that did show up in my continued fractions episode, because they would have been a little bit spooked by all the continued fractions, the infinite variety that are irrational numbers. There's this myth that they drowned a guy when they first saw a proof or a justification that some numbers couldn't be expressed as a fraction and were irrational, which the first one that you come across with that is the square root of 2, which makes sense. Historically, that it would either be the square root of 2 or pi, or maybe the golden ratio, or maybe e. So one of the fundamental constants would have been probably the first to investigate. And the square root of 2 is the diagonal of a square. So that's the pretty classic place to start, along with pi. And so they apparently drowned a guy. I don't know if I believe that. A lot of historical tales like that are embellished. I said in my episode, I'm not sure if I believe it or not, but I do believe that whether or not they drowned a guy, it really blew up their worldview and their whole religion to find out that some numbers were irrational. Now, someone's wondering what I mean by you can't construct squaring a circle. And what that means, it's obviously a nickname. They're like a version of what you could call squaring a circle that would be impossible. So we need to define a little more what we mean by that nickname. What it means is that given a circle, try and construct a square, which being able to construct a square is basically being able to construct its square root as a distance. Because once you can make the square root of the area you want as a distance, then you can easily make another side of it perpendicular and make a square. So your goal is to be given a circle, and it's not just going to be like this circle has radius. I choose that its radius is 1 over pi or something. Like you can't just do some hack or something. You're just given a circle, and you're supposed to make a square, which essentially means making the square root of this square as a side length distance with the same area as the circle. And the reason that one's impossible basically comes down to pi being transcendental. Although when I go into that, there's more details to share. But essentially, you can construct certain distances. You can obviously construct the square root of 2 as a distance, because you just have to make a square with side length 1 and then draw a diagonal. But you can't construct with an arbitrary circle the square with the same area or vice versa, because the ratio of those, of the distance of the radius you have for the circle and of the side length you have for the square, are going to be, one is going to have pi and one isn't. So you're left with this transcendental gap. And so you can't basically create a distance of pi with a straight edge and compass compared to an arbitrary one. And someone's saying a myth, did it not really happen? Nobody's going to probably ever know whether they actually drowned a guy or not. A lot of people state it like a fact, but definitely could have happened. Who knows? More likely, maybe they just freaked out and kicked the guy out of the society or something, so we have no idea. Now, thank you to the lecturer at the university also who wants to embody this sort of energy. I do believe that it can captivate more students to learn sometimes by bringing extra excitement. And in my case, setting up a lot of weird mishaps that are likely to go chaotic around here while I'm filming, like clocks ready to fall and diagonal desks and stuff. And while that might not be possible in a university, there are definitely ways to make it more exciting than some textbooks go at it with. And I'm not dissing books. Books are great, but some textbooks go at it a little bit boring energy. And that's reminder again, I got to even reiterate this. I'm not saying that about reading or books, because reading and books is incredibly valuable. I just mean there is, a certain portion of textbooks that are boring. So now someone's wondering if I'll do a sequel on my level beyond exponents. Probably will at some point, which that one was my most popular video. So it's obviously a topic people like. So topics people like, I'm more likely to return to. Now, I don't want to just bust out a main channel video just randomly until I know I'm like doing something cool with it. Until I know that there's like a really interesting way to present some facts or whatever. And so when I would make a sequel to the tetration video would either be when I've sat down and done a little more calculation on what exactly pentation and hexation's limits are of how small of a number like would break our computers and would be indescribable. Um, and then and I will mention Graham's number in it. That's not a lot of people are like, that's the coolest number of all time, it's so big, but it was an upper bound on something. It's not something that actually shows up in an equation. It just was in a math paper because at the time it was an upper bound on something. So it's not like that Graham's number is still explaining something about some mathematical phenomena. It was just interesting that the best upper bound they had for something was so large. Then, and I will go more into the notations, like people are saying the chained arrow notations and stuff and fast growing hierarchies. So I will go into the worlds of massive numbers at some point again. And then another goal would be I want to make my own tetration fractals with someone. So like at the end of the tetration episode, I showed some tetration fractal pictures that were just from Wikipedia. And I want to work with somebody to program some original tetration fractals. Then I'll feel like I'm ready to make another episode about that. And somebody was coming up with some new ideas of bases. If anyone has any that they think are really interesting and they've tested them out a bit, feel free to email me on the contact link on my email page on the channel. And I may not be able to get back to all of you, but you can always feel free to reach out. I am interested in hearing about other weird bases. I've done a lot of experimentation on my own. My latest personal experiment, and I won't fully explain this because I haven't even gone into my episode about how fractional bases can work yet, like how you could have bases involve, like I'm in base 3/2 or whatever. Well, my new idea though was, what if your base is a normal integer number as for what powers you're using, but you have a more obscure set of symbols that what your digits represent? And what if you had some balance that was, instead of balanced like ternary where you have positives and negatives, balanced multiplicatively where you have like a 1 element, a 2 element, and a 1/2 element, a 3 element, and a 1/3 element. So I was playing around with that, and I haven't fully made it work masterfully yet, but it seems to have some interesting potentials. Someone's wondering why I didn't draw the shapes for Mod 11. It was already really hard to get some of the ones like Mod 12 and Mod 9 and stuff to overlap in close enough to the right way. I didn't even draw them all perfect. They overlap close enough to the right way. And the Mod 11 ones all touch every corner apart from congruent to 0 because it's a prime mod. So everything apart from the congruent to 0 is co-prime to it that's smaller than it. And so Mod 11, I would have had to draw basically 5 shapes because there's 5 and then 5 reverse versions that all were really spiky and all really delicately drawn with 11 corners and overlapping in the right way. And it's pretty hard to draw those, which is why I ended up working with an animator. Shout out to the Magic Fellow who helped me out on some animations there. But drawing them was just going to look too sloppy, and I felt like I would draw them wrong. I hope people got the point, basically, that Mod 11 would follow similar rules to Mod 7, being prime mods. Someone's wondering if when they're high on psychedelics, they can see fractal geometry or why that is the case. Won't fully go into my opinion on psychedelics until a future grade, maybe grade -2 or grade -3, but I do think there could be some truth to that certain things can make people see a different way of looking at the world, and normally our way of looking at the world gives us a certain type of geometry we're used to, and when you see things differently, it can sometimes expand the amount of things that you are comfortable describing. We can go more into that later. And thank you to all of the other nice comments. Now, a few announcement-y things for the combo class. Now, people have asked me if I teach private lessons. I've taken 1 or 2 fans on as private students, but I already have some private students, and my goal isn't for my day job to be full more of that because I want more time to make videos. So I'm actually going to, kind of in conjunction with, I'm sorry this is boring, I'll keep it quick. People have also asked if they could support me on a Patreon or something. Well, I am going to make that starting December. I'll keep this really quick. And The lower tiers of cost will be to just see a bunch of bonus videos, behind the scenes, and weird old projects that I've made in the past, like my music and stuff. And then there will be some higher tiers that will be like group classes with me. And so I am going to start doing some group classes this December, probably through Zoom, at least during that month, and probably starting with once a week, although it could be more frequent in the future. Probably going to do it on Sundays because that's the day most likely that if you're in a random time zone, you still will be able to do it. I was trying to make it work in my head on a Monday, but like if I do it anytime for me on Monday, there's going to be tons of people who it lands in the middle of their workday. So I felt like if I do it like in the afternoon on Sunday, I have a better chance of more time zones being able to have a free time for it. There will also be some like cost tiers in between those where you'll be able to see the videos of all of my class sessions after the fact, but you may not have access to like a private discussion with me and with a small group. So if anyone wants to learn more directly from me, that will be coming in December. So stay tuned for that. I'll make more announcements like in the last week of November. Um, and it'll probably start at a few bucks because when I looked up the Patreon cuts, having a $1 tier doesn't even make sense because they take enough of a cut that the $1 gets shrunk so much more comparatively than $2 or $3. So if anyone would pitch $1 or $2, since it may start at $3, you don't need to. Just leave a comment on all my videos and stuff, and that helps enough. And then if people want to support more, there will be options in December. Some of which will cost you a little more money, will be like smaller group classes with me and after class discussions about those. Because it would be pretty awesome if in like a year from now, instead of needing to have a day job with a bunch of private students, I just a couple times a week I'm teaching a group class to some of you guys, and that won't get in the way of all the streaming or stuff. This is all toward the goal of making Combo Class more of my life and not need to have a separate day job apart from once or twice a week teaching a smaller sector of you guys. So this will, if anything, just make there be more possibilities for free live streams and free videos as well. But I'll also just be posting some weird videos on there from my past that I felt like too embarrassed or too like I didn't want it to get the channel flagged for anything, or like it just didn't make sense. It might be boring to someone who's not much of a fan. I have millions and millions of clips, not literally, but literally like literally tens of thousands probably of clips from my past of various things that are ready to be shared at various points. And someone's wondering if I've thought of writing a book, and I've actually been writing many books throughout my life. That's one of my biggest goals in life. Maybe my biggest goal, no matter how much I want this show to do well, one of my biggest goals in life is to finish some of the books that I've been working on for a while. And there are math books I want to write, but the most perfectionist I've been working on for a while type projects are actually fiction books that are definitely going to have more of a mathematical edge than an average book, but they are fiction books as well. And so I'll tell you more about those in the future, but essentially I have about 4 or 5 half-finished books out of many, many books I've started in the past. About 4 or 5 of them have gotten to a half-finished state, and I want to really make sure I get those out in the next decade. And a lot of my books take place in a small town that I've often retreat to in my head, where I write little worlds that take place in that small town in my head. So those will be very fun. Those will be coming out. There'll also be math books because I want math books to be more like fun choose your own adventures. So I'm going to make some textbooks that are actually choose your own adventures. And I also still kind of have in the corner of my head that I want to, as part of my plan to get Threeven in the dictionary, write an entire book about Threevens and Throds. I have done a lot of research on them that's not in videos yet, and I have a book worth of knowledge about just about Threevens and Throds, and a bit about what I call pure Threevens, which are essentially the powers of 3 with a positive integer exponent for the 3. And so the pure Threevens, as well as just the normal Threevens and the 2 types of Throd. Oh man, there is at least a book worth right there. I got so distracted taking my notes about Threevens because I was like, triangles are Threeven. Triangles also have a lot of Threeven qualities. Some of them have traits related to 6. And so with triangles, I did some research in that, and I got so sidetracked that I might have to write a whole separate book about triangles, because I don't know if that should take up half of the Threvens book. And if I write a book about triangles, I might name the book something about a tetrahedron, because a tetrahedron is a bunch of triangles stacked. So if I make a book that's a bunch of different triangle facts in a row, it should be the book's a tetrahedron, essentially. And then if I make a book about tetrahedrons, I'll have to name it after the five simplex, or as I like to call it, the pentachoron. Not just as I like to call it, there's just many nicknames. That's just my favorite of the mathematical names. What year did I pass high school? It was a while ago. I'm in my late 20s. I graduated in 2011. So it has been a while. I've had many journeys since high school and many journeys during high school that I will share more with you guys as time progresses. Now, I have kind of a roadblock in sharing some stuff about my past in my brain, because although I've hinted at this, I have not gone close to the full story of how once in a while I'm kind of casually like, oh yeah, there was a time I almost died like a year and a half ago, or like, oh yeah. Well, that was actually true. I actually almost died a year and a half ago, and I got 2 surgeries this year, semi-related to that. And so there's a lot of crazy stories to tell from about 2 years ago that are a little dark to revisit, but probably will be the most interesting stories to others. And then I have just eras upon eras of, including a lot of footage of a lot of music projects, a lot of crazy stuff in nature, a lot of weird comedy videos I've made. I've done a lot of weird performing over time. In fact, fun fact, last night, my family and friends threw a little performance party at this little venue we have access to, sort of like a little open mic thing, but just with the friends and family, just like 20 or 30 of us. And maybe a little more than that, but not a huge crowd. And I've performed music at those in the past, but I decided it was time to do a little Demotro performance. So this time I wore a lab coat and brought some whiteboards and some clocks and did some mind reading ish tricks with the number 9 and with some clock tricks. And maybe I'll share that footage someday, because I did get it filmed, but it's not anything hyper new to you guys if you've seen my episodes. Now, there are a lot more cool comments that I really appreciate, and I don't think I'm going to be able to answer all of them. Someone's wondering about a higher level math channel, and I think that I want to of the higher level math that I know, I want to lead people there. So some, like for example, if you flash forward to grade -5 or something, then I would say some of the episodes will be just as complex as the ones now, because it'll be a new topic, so it'll start from the ground level. And then some of the other episodes at that point may be a little more complex, because they may have been set up by the episodes I already have. So I kind of want to lead people to the higher math. And I also could theoretically make a younger math channel at some point, because that wouldn't necessarily take like much research to do or anything. So theoretically, maybe someday in the future, I'll also make a channel that like helps elementary and middle school and stuff. But that's not my main goal. My main goal right now is to try and get a full episode out every 6 or 7 days, and to try and get some sort of short or live stream on this channel every day. And the channels are still blowing up. Thank you to the algorithm gods. The main channel videos have been doing great, especially the base -10 one. Thank you so much. Whenever the main channel does good, that is great. And this channel is flying up still as well. We're at 62,000 combo large. Crazy. This channel's less than 3 months old. It's crazy. Thank you so much, everyone. And yep, we are on our way to 100K. And that's actually about the time where I'll feel like this is a larger, or I mean medium large channel. I still feel like it's a small one relatively, although it's growing very fast, but we are very close to being what I would consider more of a medium sized channel. So while we talk some more, there are a few activities I want to do. One of which is I do have a cameraman coming over later today. Well, actually, camera person, but camera woman in this case, coming over later today to help me film some more main episode footage. And I feel like I'm going to want a bunch of dice at some point in that episode to demonstrate something. So we're going to be gathering some dice today. You know, the good old looking in the nooks and crannies. We don't have the what I call the vortex anymore, where the sliding desk sent everything there. We actually now have my more practical, surprisingly, little newsroom setup desk where I like have a little zone to sit right here. I have a little zone to put my classroom chicken or props. I have a little thing here to set like some coffee or whatever. So now that there's not the vortex, maybe items will stay a little neater until the desk breaks more. And the other thing we're going to do, apart from dice gathering, is we're going to draw some more star polygons, like I named this stream after, and say some more facts about them. So hopefully people have already seen the main channel episode I did about that. If you haven't, watch it right after this. And remember that all the comments on there really help. And I don't want to spoil stuff about that. But now that I've dropped it, maybe we'll go a little more in depth about clarifying some patterns about what spiky shapes have to do with prime numbers and clocks. And the way we're going to visualize it is by picking a slightly larger number as a mod and as an analogy. Now, I think what probably makes the most sense, okay, I have this on stream from last time, so I'm going to wipe this off. Don't worry, I'm doing my classroom supply restock in the next couple of days, and I will recheck this footage. And when I restock the classroom supplies, we will be getting a lot of dice, a couple clocks, and some more colors of markers. And by just a couple votes on bubble tech, what that's going to end up getting us is some bubble fuel. So then my bubble machine won't run out. So someone's saying I should check out some of the Veritasium videos about algorithms and stuff. I probably will at some point. That's a cool channel. Haven't seen nearly all of his videos, but I really respect what he's doing. He has some great ones out. And I'll probably, when I'm bored sometime, watch more of his videos. So let's see. Thank you, everyone. I think I've done all this. And someone's asking about 4D geometry real quick. And check out my episode called The Hybridized Sequence on the main channel, which delves at the surface level of 4D geometry. And like I said, we will return to the fourth dice mention before too long. So let's erase this stuff. Oh, that's funny. That's my dice mention sequence right there. That's, wait, 1, 2, 3. There's the fourth dimension. So, yep, there are 16 regular polytopes of the ways I would define a regular polytope, including non-convex ones that look spiky. Now, ironically, those spiky ones are similar to the spiky ones we're about to make, with slight differences. Sometimes those would end up having their smaller versions. Depending how you define it, look more like an overlaid thing, like a Jewish star with 2 triangles, when we're going to see 1 triangle sometimes here, because it's a different game if I draw a bunch of dots on a circle and say connect each one to the one 2 away, or if I say connect 1 in a path to the ones 2 away, and if it keeps going on that same path, too bad to the other dots. So that's the game we're playing, is the if you're not on the starting path, sorry, game. So let's erase this. Like I said, don't worry, we got it on film for when I restock my supplies. Now, gathering dice will be good right now too, because then if I have trouble getting like 100 dice right here, then I know I need to get a ton of dice. And if it's pretty easy for me to grab like 100 dice off the ground, then we might just need a medium amount of dice. But, you know, I spent all my money on this show, so it's going to go towards something silly like that. All right. And yes, this is better at wiping it off than an eraser. I know that they make erasers for this, but trust me, when you write on the whiteboard and leave it out overnight here, it's hard. It gets like caked on, like not caked on, but the ink's just weird. It's like stuck. And so you need like some pressure. You need to grind it a little bit. So what mod should we pick? I kind of want to do 24, even though that's going to be kind of big, but let's do it. So if we go to mod 24, and the reason I'm jumping there is because that has easy analogies for clocks. So when we're in mod 24, it's like I'm playing a game on this clock, but it also has a little thing that tells us AM or PM, and it also matters which one of those it says. However, let's look at it as what some call military time, going from 0 to basically 24 before the reset. Much more practical, honestly. I've fallen in love with the 12-hour system because I like my clocks, but really 24 makes more sense. It's also 4 factorial. And in fact, the next episode coming on the main channel is about factorials. So all I'll say is that I did get 24 shots of clocks in a row to demonstrate something about that factorial. And it's also a surreal episode. I got all these chairs set up, and there's some wild cutscenes in that one. And yes, it does end in fire again. So stay tuned on the main channel for that. As usual, I will try and drop it about 6 days after the last one. Now, let's take a look at in mod 24. What are our options essentially? Let's just note that they're going to do the same thing in pairs, where if I draw a circle and I have 24 dots all around it, and I connect them to the one away, I'm going to get a 24 gon, like a polygon with 24 sides. I'm not going to be that careful with that one. And we're going to call that, okay, I'm kind of regretting doing mod 24 because we're going to have to really approximate it. So let's pretend we're just doing, let's do like mod 18 or something. So mod 18. Now, in mod 18, that'll give us a little more like, well, nah, we need the clock analogy. I don't care if it takes longer to draw. Okay, so this is a 24-sided polygon, and we get that if we either draw something congruent to 1 in that mod as my hopping amount for going from a starting dot to the next, or something congruent to 23. Because if I hop 23 forward, it sends me to the 1 backward. 23 more sends me 1 more backward. And so those are the ones that are going to paint sorry that are going to paint out a regular shape like that. And so that's always going to be the case, that in our mod, the 1 over 1 under will paint out a regular polygon when we play this game. Those touch all the corners, and we're keeping an eye out for the ones that touch all the corners. So now let's say that we have 2 hops away. Well, I'm going to get just a dodecagon, and I'm not drawing it perfectly, but we're going to be hitting half of them. So if I go congruent to 2 away or to 2 less, which is 22 away, I don't touch all the sides. So let's circle the one that touched all the corners. So that one doesn't. It skips half of them. Now, the analogy here in clocks is that if I had an alarm go off either every 2 minutes or any amount that's 2 more than a multiple of 24, or any 22 minutes or any amount that's 2 less than a multiple of 24, my alarm would only either hit, assuming I start at a like integer hour, minutes aren't counted, my alarm would only hit every, or it could just be that you don't ignore the minutes and it's whatever, where you are in the hour, but you're just talking about the hour in any case. It would either only hit at even times or odd times. If I started my alarm at even times, I only get evens. Odd times only give me odds. And that's going to be true for if I skip like 4 or something too, although that's going to miss even more of them in this case. So now let's see 3. What happens if I go 3, which we've now seen 3 less is going to do the same as well, and paint the shape in reverse. So if I hop 3 out of the 24, I paint an 8-sided shape. So, because 24 over 3 only hits 8 of them before we get some cycle. So that's definitely not hitting all of them. And if I do 4 or 20, then what I'm going to get is
let's see, a 6-sided, because 24 over 6 essentially. So now I'm going to simplify down to just those ones get touched. And there are actually 24 dots, like all the way around the circle, but only the hexagon gets touched. Now, what about 5? Okay, so here's where it gets weirder. Now we got 5 and 19. Now, this time I'm going from here, and this is like a 24-hour clock, so 12's there now. So 5's a little less than halfway there. So I'm going to go like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And here's the thing, 5 is co-prime to 24, so it is going to hit all the corners. I'm not doing this correct, but it's going to hit all the corners in like this more like wider type of star shape that overlaps in a trippier way. So it does hit all the corners. We get to circle it. Now, what about 6? 6 or 18 is actually just going to paint out a square. 6, 12, 18, 24. Ding, 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 ding. So now we're going to go forward. We got 7, and 7 is going to do a co-prime thingy, because 7 has no factors in common with 24 greater than 1. They're called co-prime. Um, what is it? 7 and 17. Those are both co-prime to it. And so we're going to get a spikier version. We're going to go like, yeah, 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 something like that, where it's a little more spiky, but not like as maximally spiky as we'll see, maybe. 7 or 17 does that. Circle it. It hit all the corners. Now let's go forward again. Let's see. 8. And 8 also covers 16. Let's see. Do you guys still have a good angle of this? We need to get this a bit lower, I guess. I have the sun in my eyes. I can't even tell if you have the sun in your eyes because I have the sun in my eyes. Um, so there we got 8, 16, and 8 is a third of 24, so we're going to paint a triangle. Now, 24 is cool because it's a really divisible number. So we're going to get all these copies. We're going to get our triangle. We're going to get our square and stuff. We're not going to get our pentagon because it's not divisible by 5. But we're going to get some other stars. So here we got 9. And we also got, what's 9 less than that is 15. Although I could also just be counting these downward. Now, 9's interesting because 9's not a factor of 24. It doesn't divide it cleanly, but they're also not co-prime. They have a factor of 3 in common. Same with the 15 in the pair. So we got a factor of 3 in common. What's that going to make happen? Well, it might have some similarities to when we just did 3, but it's going to be a little weirder acting than that, because starting, I'm going to first go to 9, and then I'm going to go to 18, and then I'm going to go 18 plus 9. It would be 27, but that sends me to 3. And then I'm going to get sent to 12, and then I'm going to get sent to 9. Which one was that again? That was 18. Wait, no, 12 plus 9 is sending me to 21. I'm thinking on the 12-hour clocks. So now I go to 21, and then plus 9 would be 28, and 24, that's, not sure if I'm doing this one right. So we might need to pause there for a second and see some of the patterns we've developed, because I know I'm going to draw the 9 one wrong. But what are the ones so far that we've seen touch all the corners? Well, we had the basic one that always will. And then we have these numbers that are co-prime to 24. And those are the spikiest shapes. And those are the numbers that multi-digit prime numbers would end in if we counted in base 24. Now, I was looking at 30 as well. And in 30, you only have 8 numbers co-prime to it. That's going to help. So let's see, maybe a little pause on the star polygons, because there's going to be a few more to draw and they're going to get tricky. But we'll probably come back and finish this at some point. If not, you guys can have your own fun little activity yourself where you try and draw the 24s and see their patterns. Now, You can also try it with different ones. If you want to get more spikies, choose a prime number amount of dots, then you're going to get a bunch of spikies. So that is the topic of my newest video on the main channel, and we will come back to it in the future because there's it's, even though it has obviously a lot of math in it, the math wasn't really the way of categorizing the star polygons compared to using them as a game to categorize things as to categorize things about primes. And so there will be episodes that aren't as worried about primes, that just focus on categorizing these as well. So thank you everyone for watching that little sidetrack tangent where I just wanted to have fun drawing a couple, but I did realize that I'm going to start screwing these up. Let's play a little game though and see what happens with 9. Well, normally in 24, we would go for 9, and then we would get to 18, and then 9 sends us to 27, but that's 3. Then we get to 12, then we get to 21, then we get to what would be 30, but that's 6. So I guess I can try and finish this. Let me just write down first where they're going to go. After 6, we add 9, so we get to 15. And then we are going to add 9, and what do you know? So here we were actually pretty close. So we got to the 21, and then we hit what would be 30, but is 6. And then we hit 15. And then what do you know? 15 plus 9 is 24. We didn't hit all the corners. Now, is this a simplifiable fraction? Yep. When we don't hit all the corners, it's typically a sign that we've seen the shape before because it's simplifiable in some way because they have a factor in common. So 9 and 24, we said had a factor of 3 in common. So why don't we simplify this to say it's 3/8? Now, that means that if I had just 8 dots on a circle and I traced each one to the one 3 away, I would also get that shape. And so on the 8 dot circle, that would be fresh and would touch all the corners there. But here on the 24 dot circle, we miss a bunch with that jump. So we can see that, they had a factor in common, which relates to them not touching all the corners, also relates to in mod 24 or base 24, primes wouldn't be able to end in those digits. So why don't we now look at, I guess we just have 1 or 2 more. Let's do the 1 or 2 more we have. We have congruent to 10 and 14. Now, these have a factor in common. We got a simplification to 5/12, and that means that what we're going to see is the picture that 5/12 would make that would be pretty maximally spiky. I might be drawing the wrong amount there. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. It might be, it's something like that. So that one would be in 5/12 hitting all of them, but here in 10/24 is not hitting them all. Now, finally, well, not quite finally, let's skip forward. We're going to have 12. Congruent to 12 just makes a line. So now, before that, finally, we have congruent to 11. We'll just tuck it in where we can. And congruent to 11, which is also going to be congruent to 13, is going to be super spike. That's going to be, I'm not drawing the right amount necessarily, but it's going to look something like that. And that one gets a circle. So let's keep a big tally now. What are our ones that hit all the corners? We got 1. I'm just going to start with the smaller ones now. 1, 5, 7, and 11. And then those amounts mirrored up to 24. So now here's a stretch of number line. Here is something that is at least 24. That is a multiple of 24. And it's congruent to 0 in this mod. But we're going to say that it's at least 24, so we don't have any pattern breaking that'll occur with small numbers being able to be prime because they're smaller than 24, and so they haven't cycled around yet. So here we're at 24 or 48 or any multiple of 24 that big or greater, and there we have congruent to 0 in that mod at that point. Now we have congruent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, label 12. So now we're at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And then we hit another 24, which is 0 in this mod. So now, what does this mean about where the primes could land here? Well, the 2 hop is like how everyone 2 away from that is even. So we can't have it on the evens, dead, dead. Can't have it on any of the evens. Now, what about the 3-evens? Dead. These are the ones that can't be primes. Now, after we've killed all these ones from being primes, let's see the 3-evens. Third, that one lines up normal. Dead, already dead. Dead, already dead. Wait. That's the next one. Dead. Okay. We got all the 3-evens out of the way and the evens. Now, we actually don't have to worry about the fact that this could divide 4 or 6 or whatever. Those are already covered because we all the factors of this, no prime factor is bigger than 3 in that. And so we've covered all of what we need to cover there. Now, what's left? Where could the primes live? The primes can live at 1, 5, 7, 11, 13 should have, yeah, there's 13. And now we're hitting the just reverse, the symmetrical thing of that. Those amounts less than the one on top. So those are what primes could end in base 24, primes that are greater than 24. And those are, even in not base 24, we could say that all primes are one of those distances higher than a multiple of 24, if they're not, the tiny primes 2 or 3 or whatever. So as we can see, and hopefully that clarifies the video I just dropped a little more, we can see that what primes can end in a given base, or distances primes would have to be higher than a multiple of something, corresponds with, when we play this game, which ones touch every corner. So someone's wondering if I'm looking for pi. I am not. You could try and approximate pi by getting the area of increasing sizes of polygon. We'll go into some pi approximations someday. Someday I'll try and calculate pi from scratch, and one of the fun ways to do it. Now, I got to get this, I got to get this moved so there's not that hyper glare on you all. Now we're just facing my more boring equation wall, but that's okay. We'll put a little clock a little clearer back here so that we can tell the time. Oh yeah, and this part of my desk is really done for. All right. Now, maybe we can turn this into a little car or something. It has some wheels on it. To everyone also who saw me in the last episode that I put on the main channel yesterday, at the end when something breaks on the desk, that was real. I stepped right here in this, the gap part right there, like right here is like wood, and then I stepped right here and I was standing on it while I was working on some stuff, and I let myself put some weight on it. I wasn't sure. I thought there was a chance something would tilt or something, but it just caved through, and then I clipped my part of my leg on this like sort of staple like giant screw in there, and now we're still just mostly recovered, but this is from the episode that came out on the main channel yesterday, essentially. Probably the most I've gotten hurt by the combo class so far, because I'm really careful with the fire stuff. But in any case, it was all good. Not too much damage. I've had much worse happen to my legs. I had 2 surgeries this year. So it's more like I got to be more careful because I don't want to mess up my bones or surgeries. But it wasn't anything close to what my legs have been through before. Um, so thank you again to all the nice extra comments. Now I couldn't find the charger because of that performance thing last night. I don't know where the extension cord that lets me plug it in is, the power strip thing is. So we're maximally going to go until the battery dies on this, which is about halfway. We probably won't even go quite that long, but just to let everyone know, that's our maximum, is when the battery dies on this computer. Now, let's do a little bit of dice collection now that we've proven some cool stuff about polygons. Like, if you want to try it on your own, like I said, it's a great fun activity to experiment with a different mod. A good one you might want to try is 18 or something 20 or 16. Something with a medium amount of divisibility can be cool. See what the patterns in there are. And let's gather some dice. Where is a container? All right, here's a container. Now, some would call this the thing that a blender usually uses, but I do have the blender for it out here, so maybe we'll try someday blending some stuff. I have it out here just in case, but we'll fill it with dice for now because it'll be a great container for the dice to go. So while I fill some dice, let's see what else is coming in the near future here. Now, I got a bunch of filming stuff going on soon, so I'll probably get back on track with the short videos. I had posted a bunch of them on this channel last month because this channel was so new that I still had ones filmed since like April. I had like a backlog of the shorts, and now I don't have a backlog. I have a few more that I might like posts from the past that never dropped, but I don't really have a backlog of them anymore. They're all mostly new ones. And so I want to get back on track with filming one of those a day as a good motivational activity. And we already have a good amount of dice. So some would say it's absurd that I said I'm going to buy more dice, but we are going to buy more dice just so it's easier to have a massive collection ready to use a demonstration in a video. And because I need more other polyhedral sorts of them. I have too many cubes here. Not enough dodecahedrons and icosahedrons in the mix. Now, I also want dice with just other types of number on them. I think that should be more common. I need to get some blank dice because I have actually done some research myself into something known as intransitive dice that have strange properties and developed some of my own numbers that work on dice to do strange things. So someday, if I ever drop any merch, one of the first things I drop might be weird types of dice that have cool numerical properties based on the numbers on their faces. And yeah, as I've said before, another thing that we'll be launching in a few months is comboclass.org. So that is a whole nother story. It's going to start out with just some written things and a way of linking the videos that are on similar concepts. And as it goes on, I love writing, so I'll probably have fun writing extra paragraphs of content about all the videos I've made. And then it'll link together like a little maze. And I think that someday I'll have some cool other things on there, like little interfaces and games to show ways of interpreting numbers and fun little game-like things. And that'll launch at some point when it's ready, but I'm not in a rush for that one. I'm going to launch the Patreon I mentioned sooner with my little classes for people and stuff, because the sooner the better that I can try and make some money off that form of teaching and then transition out of sort of my day job type teaching and have more and more combo class time. Which, by the way, I love nicknames. So there are some nicknames for the things I'll be dropping through the Patreon, which are I'm calling it my combo vault will be what a lot of the lower tiers get. And the combo vault is just a lot of behind the scenes rare footage and other projects I never released and a lot of crazy stuff from my past. And then the next level is what I am nicknaming the Combo Academy, which is going to be sort of more filmed lecture like videos from me on a variety of topics. There will be a little more on topic than the streams and a little more detailed than the main channel videos. So it's sort of like stream length, but more on the topic of a singular thing to teach. And you're not going to want to sign up for those if you have a specific thing you're trying to learn. Like if you're in some trigonometry class and you need to learn a certain identity, because you don't know what I'm going to teach each week. But it will be some really awesome stuff. And I'm not sure which of them will end up as topics on the main channel in the future or not, because there's too many topics. So there'll be some rare extra topics there that I should teach in some shape or form. Um, and someone's making all sorts of other minerals of icosahedral dice at the jewelry store. That's cool. I do think that, although I don't really care about any sort of jewelry, I think that if people were going to want to look flashy, the way that people wear chains and other sorts of jewelry and stuff, it would be pretty ballin' to have some like $1 million dice, more than like $1 million chain. With that said, I don't really care about fashion or find that impressive. Not really a fan of money. In fact, I find it incredibly awkward and embarrassing to ask people for money, which is why I feel weird doing all those rants about stuff like that. But I don't know. Maybe someday I'll have. Nah. If I have a lot of money for dice, the thing is, I'm not going to buy expensive dice because I would just be thinking in my head how many other dice I could have gotten. Like if I buy some gold dice, I could have just gotten thousands of plastic dice, and I could use thousands more. So, yeah, money is weird. I don't like money. My goal is just to not have to think about money, which is a lot of people's goal. And unfortunately, nowadays, you have to be practically wealthy to not think about money. And of course, you still have to a degree, but like it would be my dream of all dreams to someday hire someone to do all the finance stuff for combo class because that stuff's just so boring and mundane to me. And I just want to spend time like researching and making this stuff. So, um, yeah, the less I have to think about money in the future, the better. I'm going to be thinking about money more so in the near future to try and turn Combo Class into my job and enough of a company that I don't have to think about money because I can like hire people. But there will be a lot more thinking about money before there's less in my world. Um, because yeah, it takes a trade to go down the risky road of trying to like make a company like thing out of your art to be able not to be company like but just to be able to make more higher scale videos, and to have other people focused on other parts of the team job. That stuff, yeah, it's going to take a lot more thinking about that boring stuff for me before hopefully my risky stuff pays off and I can hire someone to do that thinking for me. And they can get a bunch of the money for doing that. Most of the money's going right back into the videos. But as far as like if I have a company someday, I'm not going to want much more of a salary than all the people working for me because I don't need much money. I can live on cheap stuff. And if I have any money, I want to buy stuff that's basically for the show. Like it's fun and for me, if I bought something that's fun for me, it often lines up with something that you guys would like to see in the videos, like a bigger bubble machine or cooler whiteboards or a million dice. So if I ever make any money, you guys will just see it in terms of me having more and more absurd quantities of all the weird stuff around here. Normally, I think it's kind of dumb to collect a bunch of plastic or whatever because it's like, maybe that makes you feel a little good, but it's kind of a fleeting feeling to have products. But I think that for the sake of having my classroom be as informative, maybe in quotes, maybe not, depending how you look at it, as informative as possible, I need millions of dice and hundreds of clocks to maximize my ability to inform and educate. Um, Someone's wondering if I smoke. Probably wait a while to go into stuff like that. I have a lot of personal details about, everyone has things they do or don't do. The things that I do or don't do, I'll probably save more future time to go into. And the only one that I'll mention again now is that I do not drink alcohol. And I personally think that although it can be really fun and some people can handle it just fine and they can go ahead, and a lot of my friends do, and I don't care if they do here, I think alcohol is a sort of curse on the world and that it causes a lot of secret damage in society. And I had a bad relationship with it in the past, and now I haven't drank in more than a year. So that's something I don't do, just to point out that for all of my chaotic antics, you don't need to get drunk to do those things. Um, Now, there will be more stories about more personal details about me as time goes on. I have whole documentaries and memoirs worth of tales, and I have to figure out which form I want to put those things out in. But like literally, there will probably be some whole documentary length episodes and some memoirs written about my past because a lot has gone on. I feel like I've already lived a whole life, and so now I'm on bonus time. Because when I almost died, it's like I try and look at it like, well, if I almost died, and that's one of the things I haven't really shared yet, but just so people have a timeline, if they're curious, that was on January 17th of 2021. Um, I try and think of my time now as like a free, fun, extra bonus. Like if I died, but I secretly got to push a button and now I'm actually here witnessing things. Or like if it was in the distant, distant future when I'm gone and I got to time travel back. So we get some bonus time. And in that bonus time, I'm going to do a lot of teaching. So, by the way, we also got some cards here, which are always fun because, like I did in my last stream, I want to do a little shuffle as a reminder that all of our actions have many more factorial permutations than we give them credit for. And shuffling a deck of cards a few times, oops, that messed it up. It's hard to shuffle on this little ridge. Then shuffling a deck a good couple times will ensure it's in a position that it probably never has been in history, any deck. And so um, kind of a nice meditative activity. I now know that I have little proof right there that each of our actions are actually unique. That has never been an order of a deck in history. So it's kind of meditative and interesting. A lot of people treat that just like as a fun fact to learn and then forget about and keep like, oh yeah, deck of cards, a lot of permutations. But I hope my episode about factorials coming out next week, which is a lot more examples than that, helps sink in how vast and common and throughout our existence the factorial is lurking and making the amount of possibilities of certain things enormous. So this just as a hint of that, something that people really don't take into account is like, let's say you are with a group of 7 people at a table at a restaurant. So you're like, me and my 6 friends are going to sit down. How many ways could me and my friends sit down at this table? There's 7 chairs. Well, you might be like, okay, juggling it around in my head, trying to imagine how many ways to arrange 7 people around 7 chairs. Your gut instinct could be like 100 ways or something. Well, it's more than 5,000 ways. And with each new person you add, it keeps getting more and more growth. So there are a lot of examples of wild ways that factorials make the amount of possibilities in our world vaster than we realize. So I need to think about what makes sense to film today, because we got time to film some episodes today and in the next couple days around here. And I got some friends available to film. So going to get another full episode or two done. I like to keep those rolling. Those on the main channel, as a reminder, are really where I feel like my ideas are put in their complete form. Now, let's just get back to some dice collecting while we chat, because that's not going to hurt whatever episode I end up deciding to make. Here's what we'll do. I'll take you guys on the dice hunt with me. This is sort of like a miniature field trip, and it looks like we have a new person to take out of the chat. Another one of those spamming things. Now, to any of my younger viewers, no sites like that will not help you find the perfect match. Um, Someone's wondering my favorite card game because they love poker. Poker is quite fun. I've had a lot of fun playing poker over the years in various contexts, very fun games. Um, I've invented card games, so my favorites are ones I've invented, such as one called Oddball that's pretty fun. And it's a three-person card game, which is a little less common, and I wanted to have some three-person card games in the mix. And there are, out of the main card games, I mean, this isn't really a card game, but I do have to shout out that when I was younger, I loved Magic the Gathering. Now, if you mean playing cards, um, there's, I don't know, hard to say what my favorite game would be. I think there need to be better innovations in playing card games. I want to develop some playing card games that work better than any I've heard of yet. So I would say my favorite is probably poker, betting a small amount of money with friends, where you're actually betting a little bit, but not a crazy amount, and where you make up the rules a little bit, where you're like, okay, and people, some of the people I play with get annoyed at me for this, but I like doing a new game each time. Some people think like that's going to throw off my odds and my strategy. I have memorized the Texas Hold'em chart. I need to use that. And it's like, come on, dude. It's like we're betting like $5. Yeah, maybe you'll lose 10 cents because you can't game me in Texas Hold'em, but let's just try a game with new rules. And so I usually I'm like, okay, in this game, there's going to be each round you get one card in the center everyone shares and one card down, and you have wild cards. If you ever have a three in a row, the middle one is wild, and you just some weird random rules, and then you play poker. So that's probably my favorite, but there are fun card games. I'm a fan of card games and board games, probably more than video games, just because I'm old fashioned and like sitting down and thinking about it and interacting with a real world thing. Um, but I'm not a huge gamer anyways, so I'm more interested in inventing games and learning the game theory behind them. And one of my goals is to invent card games and board games. And like board games in particular, a good marker of a good game is chess that has gone down throughout history. I think I could make a game someday that has less pieces and simpler set of moves than chess while having still a level of complexity that humans may never crack. Because chess is beyond a level of complexity that we're unsure if humans will ever get it to a solved state or not. However, um, I think that you don't need that many pieces to be at that level of complexity of game. So that's something I would like to work on. I like to invent board games where I'm just using like sometimes chess pieces reassigned new names or sometimes coins, and I name them after little animals. So I'll be like, frogs do this, lizards do this. And so I'll have like a little zone of critters and assign what moves they do and test it out. Um, and someone says to put that on Kickstarter. Well, I don't think I'm going to be begging for money in too many different places. I've already ranted about I'm going to make a Patreon in December here. So any money that I get through that will fund my ability to make board games and stuff. So, any money that I get through that or through in the future, hopefully like getting money from ads on these videos or stuff, which this bonus channel still isn't even on the partner program because of how they count views. But in the future, making some more money off this will, wherever I get it, I will spend my time doing fun stuff like making board games and card games. Because I can also make episodes about the game theory behind construction of them. And I think games have very deep potential. One of the great mathematicians who died not too long ago is John Conway, and he played a lot of games and invented games and thought about what games would mean, and ended up needing to invent whole new systems of numbers that are still sometimes useful, just by having to invent a game and try and describe certain things about its winning positions or about if it was a first person or second person win in those given positions. So I think there's a lot of, basically, I'm not much of a gamer, but I think that simple games, like a simple set of rules and going down the rabbit hole of what those rules lead to, has vast applications. Also leads to a lot of real world things about how a lot of nations in the world have nuclear technology pointed at each other, and they're in a sort of standstill because if you shoot, you get shot. There's a lot of game theory in that too. And for those curious about the real world aspects, an interesting one to look up that I haven't put in a video yet because I'm waiting for the right context is the prisoner's dilemma. And think about, if you look that up sometime, how that relates to real world concepts as well as to a card game you could make. So someone's wondering how I feel about Sudoku, and it's cool, but I actually have a different favorite. This I want to reach out to the guy who makes these. So they have Sudoku's cool. I went down a phase where I was camping in the woods once with my dad, and we had like a newspaper was the only technology, and I was like, I'm gonna see what's cool in here. Okay, they have a game, and then like for the week we were camping, I was like, I want to go take a walk to where the newspapers are sold. Take a like hike over there to the little shop and buy a newspaper or whatever because I want to get the next Sudoku. They're so fun. And so I like got really into them. Never did too deep of the game theory of them, but they are cool. Maybe someday I'll deconstruct the game theory more. But then they started making this puzzle, and I was stuck at home a lot last year because of all this crazy stuff, not just COVID, but like being before the surgeries I'm gonna have to get soon and stuff. I mean, the surgeries that at that point I had to get soon that I've now already gotten. But during that period, I was stuck at home a lot, and they had next to the Sudoku in the newspaper we got here this new one called Two Not Touch, although it's often called Star Battle, and for some reason they wanted to call it Two Not Touch in there. And then so I went to the website of the guy who made them after I've had fun with it, and he made tons of them that you can print for free. And the guy's called Crazy Dad with a K. And I'm going to give him a shout out, even though I've never talked to him yet, because I should reach out to him because Two Not Touches helped get me through a dark time, printing out tons of those at the highest difficulty. Now, here's the thing. Part of why I want to reach out to the guy is he made a tutorial of the important moves you need to know. I figured it out myself and found it really fun to try and figure out how you would go about it without reading any tutorial. But then I read his tutorial later and after doing a bunch, and there was one or two tips he had that I hadn't thought of that did help on the higher level ones. But then I found some of my own techniques that I haven't seen in his tutorial. And I saw somewhere on his website that he says he has to use an almost guess and check like system on some of the hardest ones. And I don't need to use a guess and check like system. I can get any level of two not touch in within a couple minutes. I would time myself when I was going through a dark period and distract myself by being like, okay, man, I got that one in 1 minute. Okay, minute and a half. Okay, 40 seconds. And I need to reach out to the guy and tell him that I may be the world's master in his weird little puzzle. Although other people do make them called star battles as well. And that's what he calls them too. But for some reason, the newspaper made him call them Two Not Touch. Um, so, and someone's mentioning Wordle as well. Yeah, that was a huge hit. Someday, maybe, hopefully, one of my games I make blows up like that. That's pretty fun. I do that some days. You know, it's really quick, so it's kind of a good brain teaser. Um, so probably do the Wordle like, once a week or something when I remember and I'm bored. Um, Stuff like that is good for your brain. You don't want to spend hours and hours on it. Otherwise, it stops being something that's leveling up your brain. But doing a little bit of different types of problem solving is good. So I feel like doing like a Wordle each day is probably great for your brain. Um, Now, they are getting weirder words in it, though. There was once or twice where they hit me with a word at the end where I'm like, are you serious? That's not a word. So I don't know about that. I think they need to move on to 6 letters instead of going on to the really, really obscure half words that like a Scrabble player busts out. And you're like, are you joking? You know? So let's see if there's any other comments. Now I'm holding this in a weird way, but yeah. Wordle made $1 million. Yep, that's wild. I believe it. So it got like 1 million articles written about it. Now, if I ever make a game that makes $1 million, I'll build a combo castle and invite you all to it. And let's look for some dice. The reason I got this in such a weird zone is because we're going to take a little ground field trip. It's not going to be a very far field trip, but we're going to get a little peek at the dice carpet and the current status. And there's a little fish. You'll see him in the factorial episode. So yeah, it's chaos back here. We're at a state that's rather messy. And as I pointed out, I think in the last stream, to anyone who recognized those googly eyes that were on the side of the desk, well, that's a good way to tell that this is now what part of the desk has become giant stick. The best suggestion I've mix of heard suggested and suggested myself is to use it as a stick in a sundial. If I can find somewhere sunny enough here, that could be the pole of the sundial. So the sun gets really weird in the season. So it's not going to snow here. It is going to rain more, but the sun is at a really weird angle and goes down so quick. So I have like some camera people who are used to coming over later in the day sometimes, and I'm like, we got to start filming at like noon or 1 or something these days because although today I'm filming maybe around 1 or 2, which is good, but I need to film more in that time because if I start at like 3 or 4, it gets dark so fast, like a curtain at like 6 p.m. In the factorial episode, I used a candle in the last shot because it went from like light to super dark in like 10 or 15 minutes while we were filming. So the last shot needed a candle for that. It's also why part of my desk is burnt now. So, I've told you all, you may say the desk is broken, but if we can still see it, it's not fully broken. So, sorry for the chaotic angle. Let's do some dice grabbing. So, no matter what episode I decide to pull out of my. Okay, I should be more careful with this dice grabbing. This is a nice shard of glass. It's ready to cut my finger. So, we will pause on the dice grabbing maybe because maybe I should be a little more attentive and not be staring half at the camera when I'm grabbing in the glass. Now, there shouldn't normally be glass on the combo class floor, but there are multiple clocks that have shattered recently. And I want to use the half shattered clocks while they still are half alive, but then I have to store half shattered clocks. So there's all these places that are now like caution zones where it's like, okay, here I'm going to plant a little garden, but watch out for the shattered glass clock right there. So I put it there because it seemed safe. It seemed like no one would hurt themselves in that little spot, but I'm running out of place to put half shattered clocks. Now, before I throw them away because they're half shattered, I need to restock new clocks. So I need to go on a clock hunt soon. So now my legs are starting to get better. It's been in 4 months since my surgery, since the second surgery. And so I think it's about time to go to some thrift shops. Someone's wondering if I'm East or Central Coast, and I'm neither. I am in California. I am in the Bay Area of California. And someone's wondering about Ramanujan's amazing theory about conjecture. I think that might be missing a word because it would have to be about the something conjecture because Ramanujan made so many great discoveries that there was not one single conjecture. There were many brilliant ones. Ramanujan's one of my favorite mathematicians, not just a personal favorite, but additionally, I think one of the most innovative. Like, even if you took personal bias out of it, one of the greatest of all time. And yep, someone said check out the Veritasium videos about the algorithm, which I'll definitely take a peek at those sometime. There's like a weird game to it, and I'm sure that he's smart at figuring out the game, so I'll do some research at that at some point. Now, really though, I would love to someday have a situation where someone else on my team is worried about the thumbnails and the titles, because I want to worry most about the content. But for now, I'm in charge of all that, of getting the thumbnail and title and stuff right, or sometimes one of my editor friends. So, yep, I'm still working on that process. I'll do some more research, like watching some vids and stuff. And for now, what I've noticed, if anyone's curious, is what it takes for a normal video to go well. The shorts are just a whole nother hard to predict story. But what it takes for a normal video to do well is um, the first factor is when they put it on people's home screen and or subscription tab, what percent of people click. That is a huge factor. It's called your click-through rate, and that's like one of the most important things is how many people click it. And then there's how long the people watch, viewer retention, and that's like the other huge important thing. Then you get how many comments, and that's pretty important too. And then to a degree, I think the likes might matter, but I don't think the likes matter anywhere in comparison to the comments, which are still less important than how long someone watches and what percent of people clicked it. So, if anyone wants to help out, leave a comment on all my main channel videos and make sure you've watched them all the way through. Um, but whatever, I just like making the videos. It's moving at a fast enough rate for me. So, although I want to polish up mastering the algorithm and stuff at some point, maybe a little bit of my sloppiness is working out right now. You know, it's showing people that I'm just a genuine person who likes making this stuff. So, we'll see how polished up I can get it on those aspects in the future, but I'm pleasantly surprised by how fast grade -1 has grown. I can't really say what really got me into math because I've kind of gone into that in older streams and because it's hard to pinpoint. But since I was a kid, I like problem solving and stuff and numbers. And I would say that a few of the first ones I found very compelling as concepts were propositional logic puzzles, like about this guy always tells the truth, this guy always lies. What does it mean they are if they say this? So, propositional logic was one of my early loves, but the puzzles generated by it, paradoxes of all sorts I really liked, like things that seem counterintuitive at first and have sometimes an explanation, or sometimes people disagree on what the right explanation is. So paradoxes I loved at a young age. The golden ratio and pi both were good friends of mine in middle school. Me and like my friends would memorize a billion digits of pi, and I've told the story here at some point about how I kind of discovered the golden ratio myself after playing around with numbers and then forgot about it and then read about it later. And I was like, oh man, that was the number that I saw on my calculator. Um, and so the golden ratio and pi were pretty great to me. Rubik's cubes are technically, mathematical. And although I didn't really think about their relationship to group theory or anything, Rubik's cube algorithms were fun for me at that age. But I don't know. I like patterns. I always thought it was interesting, stuff like that. Like, when I'm young and you learn, like, okay, if I want to know 9 times 3, I can fold down the third finger and I have 2 here and 7 there. That makes 27. It's like, whoa. So just like at even younger ages, there's things that were cool. Um, And yeah, someone's saying the dirty lab coat has a psychological effect. It probably scares away some viewers and draws others. So luckily, probably the amount it scares away are probably the amount it draws in. And the ones it draws in are probably more suited for my channel anyway. Because if you're scared of a little dirt, you're probably going to end up not liking one of the videos because this classroom is in the dirt. Um, Someone's solving a cube, which is similar to a cube. That is cool. Someday maybe I'll get some more Rubik's cubes in the background here, some more different types. We got a number related to Rubik's cubes back there, related to 2x2 cubes. But yeah, maybe I'll get some more types in the background sometime. Could be fun. Now, someone's wondering how interested I am about the information about higher dimensions. And yes, I'm very interested. And it is also true, like they mentioned, that you can only get so much information making projections of a higher dimension. We can luckily describe their mathematical traits, even for the traits that we can't visualize. Of course, still a lot of questions, but within the dimensions, through like the polygonish higher dimensional analogs, we know a good amount about those in typical types of geometry in many dimensions. But the ones that we can't visualize, we just have to describe as numbers and sentences. I'm very interested in that. I think that's one of the more fundamental relationships that numbers have to the universe. And we'll definitely go into that more in the future. That's one of those things that I just want to have extra good ways of visualizing as I describe my thoughts on it. I want to work with people who can make cool like hypercube shadows and stuff. So, and even better, a shadow of the pentachoron or 5 simplex I mentioned earlier, the simplest perfect 4D shape, which is a version of the triangular tetrahedron bumped up, not a version of the square cube. And that is, there's something more pure about it. It's its own dual shape, and it's the simplest in each dimension, and it gets more and more simplest in comparison to like how many vertices are on a hypercube and stuff. You always just need one more vertice than the dimension number to make a version of a tetrahedron. And so those shapes are extra simple and important. The higher dimensional analogs of the triangle. So that's the shape I think needs a lot more research, is known as the pentachoron, among many other nicknames. And if you really want a mathematician to know what you mean, you might want to call it the 5 simplex. And the reason it's called the 5 simplex, although it's in the 4th dimension, is because it names how many, let's see, it names how many corners, I'm pretty sure. Let's make sure that, let's see what they say about simplexes here. I'm Googling them real quick. No, so sorry, I'm wrong. We want to call it the 5 cell or the 4 simplex. Sorry, not the 5. That there is a 5 simplex, but that's a higher dimension. So the 5 cell is the same as the 4 simplex, because one of them is talking about how many corners we got and stuff, how many faces and stuff, and another one is talking about closer to line up to which dimension we're in. Like we can call a triangle a 2 simplex. Now, we can even call a line segment a 1 simplex. You can even call a point a 0 simplex. Call a tetrahedron a 3 simplex, and that's the furthest one we can fully visualize. The one I was accidentally calling the 5 simplex, but known as the 5 cell or 4 simplex, is the first one we can't visualize and the shape that needs a lot of research. Now you can find traits about it in Pascal's triangle, so that's pretty cool. There's also traits in some shapes that relate to powers of 2 and powers of 3, which I like to think about as numbers that are purely even or purely threeven. So, and yeah, 5. So the terms are easy to mix up on those because sometimes they're talking about how many cells it has, which can be like faces or volume things. And sometimes they're talking about how many, what dimension it closer to lines up. And I think that they call it the 5 cell because it has 5 tetrahedrons that make it up essentially. Um, Sorry to whoever wrote a comment in another language and then put a frowny face. I'm not sure what the comment said, so I'm not sure what the frowny face is in reference to, but hope everything's going okay. Someone's wondering why a tesseract's not static. I'm not sure what you mean by that. The tesseract is a nickname for also the hypercube, but and other mathy names for it. The tesseract is less, not fundamental, but it's less simple for sure and less basic. And those are kind of important traits for some stuff to have, because as it goes up in dimension, you get like close to basically powers of 2 in a way in some of the traits, as opposed to simplexes sometimes just add like 1 trait or little amounts of a trait, like triangular number amount of a trait. So basically they expand a lot more confusingly. It would be a lot harder to categorize all of the vertices of a 7-dimensional cube than triangle, than even a 7D triangle, I mean, or the same thing as a 7D tetrahedron, because the tetrahedron is a 3D triangle. And it's also less fundamental in basicness because it's not its own dual shape, which means that if you take a dot that is on the center of each face of, let's use a 3D shape, for example, and you make the volume inside that connects the center of each face. A cube would make an octahedron inside it, touching each corner to each face. So they have the flip of each other's traits for how many faces and how many corners they have. And so some ones like that are each other's dual shape. And if you flip their traits, they live inside each other in a way. And tetrahedrons and triangles and their further ones are their own dual. And if you flip them, you get a smaller version of themselves. So there's something pretty cool about their basic fundamental nature, kind of like how the triangle is in many ways more fundamental than the square. Um, I believe that people forget that also means the tetrahedron has ways it's more fundamental than the cube. Now, I'm not as much a fan of tetrahedral dice. They're harder to work with. Cubes make great dice. They also, because you're talking about the faces, like the faces being triangles is cooler geometrically, but the amount of faces on a cube, 6, I am a big fan of the number 6. So cubes make great dice, but as far as just shapes, tetrahedrons for the win. So getting some more dice. I don't think I need to take you on the field trip. I guess you're just getting to see the random background. We are going to wrap up pretty soon because there's a chance that my camera friend will come over soon. And we can also think about ways that this abacus could describe different counting, which is fun. In fact, this one extra could describe something special because this one actually is easier to categorize. Like I'm using 5 of one for something and 5 of one for something else. So this one could have some interesting alternate bases where we're using like the reds to count a negative number and the whites to count a positive number. If we had some way of like shifting them both over halfway or something, I don't know. So like maybe like in the negative bases, like if I was like, all right, this is going to add a power of 5. This is going to subtract 2 of the smaller power of 5. We can maybe use this to represent negative bases somehow. That could be cool. And this one, we could just, represent other bases. They do give you 10 balls on it, so it's a little base 10-y. But, if you wanted to be more practical, you could just slide over 6 of them as your digits. You'd actually only, here's the funny thing, they give you 10 things on here, but you would only need 9 for base 10 because you get to call this 0, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They don't need this 10th one. The 10th one should be equivalent to 1 of the next size. So this is designed for base 11. What the heck? All right. I need to take a note about that to do a little research if all abacuses are wrong. You guys got to see me type sometime. I love writing notes on my laptop. And I've done those online typing tests for fun, and I'm like secretary speed. If I ever go bankrupt, and I mean, I'm already broke, but if I ever don't have anywhere to live and no money, then I'll find a way to be someone's secretary because I can type hella fast. But right now, I just got to take a quick note. So, yeah, I'm going to do more research into that. But my current hypothesis is that these abacuses are giving you an extra 1 you don't need. This is like having a digit for everything between 0 and 10. That's what you use in base 11. So what the both of the 2 abaci I randomly have. And that is a question as well. I don't know, actually. Is the plural of abacus abaci? Let's look it up. Plural of abacus. The plural of abacus is either abaci or abacuses, it says. So it has 2 proper plural forms. So you can call it either abacuses or abaci. I think abaci is pretty dope, so we'll probably call them abaci when we're talking about more than one. Someone needs to see keyboard cam. Yeah. Well, so I have like that streaming software a lot of people use called OBS on here that I haven't really figured out too much yet, but I figured out how to make it show you guys my screen. So sometime when it's nighttime or raining and I want to stream in my room again, I'll do it so you guys just see my face in the corner and see my screen. And here's some things we'll do when we're looking at my screen. We'll read some Wikipedia articles. We will make some weird graphs on the graphing calculator Desmos. We will probably look at some weird old video clips of mine or some behind the scenes. And if you request it then we'll do a keyboard typing test. And there's not a stream schedule yet, whoever's asking, because I'm still figuring out what I can do when I can do it. It's chaotic running this whole show myself with a little bit of help from random friends. So this isn't my full time job yet or anything. So I am very far from it still. So I don't have a concrete schedule yet. With the Patreon lessons I do, which I'm going to be doing in December for like a group class with after class discussions and stuff, or a medium tier where you get to see the lectures, but you're not attending the after class discussion. Um, those ones are going to be each Sunday in December. I'm going to film them at some point some point like in a few hours from what time it is right now. I'm going to be doing that in December, and that's going to be separate from streaming because I'm still going to stream a few days a week. I usually do it a few random days a week. So I'm not sure yet on when I'm going to figure out like these are the 3 days I stream or whatever. Right now it's a little chaotic. This one I only put 3 minutes before the stream I started scheduled it. So sometimes I try and schedule them a few hours before and you can see it on the channel, but that's not always the case. So at some point before too long, I'll probably pick 3 or 4 days of the week, and those will be my streaming days. But the first step I'm doing right now is on the Patreon for people who end up signing up for that. There are going to be group classes on Sundays, and there are also going to be tiers that get the footage of that for those who can't attend it live or who don't want to. Um, Someone saying a second camera looking at the keyboard. We can try multi-cameras in the future. I don't have a huge amount of camera gear technology. My next step is going to be to upgrade my microphone situations. Um, but I really just need more help from people who are more technologically adept than me because I don't end up spending much of my time mastering those things. And so with each camera I like get really good at using that camera and then don't want to figure out a new one. Um, but, I will slowly assemble a team of helpers and workers to figure out the parts that I'm not as good at so I can dedicate my brain to all of this crazy stuff. And then someday we'll have extra good episodes all the time. I do think the quality is slowly and steadily improving. The last episode on the main channel is the first with live animations in them, and the next one has like more cutscenes than ever and cool clips and a little bit of a surreal edge to part of it. And there's still going to be some random, just like here's a little math type episodes, but some of them are going to get higher scale in interesting ways. And I don't mean they're going to like start looking Hollywoodish or anything because I don't actually like that look. I like the look of like homemade stuff a lot more, but we're just going to make sure that it sounds better and looks better and has larger quantities of all the chaos that you like. And so we're still in grade -1. It is absolutely crazy that we're already here at 62,000 subscribers. Like, absolutely crazy. Like I've said before, I have high dreams for this channel. I am very self-critical and self-hating, unfortunately, but I'm also kind of cocky about my dreams. And so I have always thought, despite all of my own like unfortunate self-criticalness, I have always thought eventually my ideas are going to go good, but they'll find an audience. But I didn't realize it would be so quick while I was getting all these surgeries. I thought I was going to have to get the surgeries, heal my body and mind, and then do all this. I didn't realize it would already like have practically grown by the time my surgeries were done. And now as I heal my body and mind more, I can do it while making some cool art and math. Yep, and whoever liked the animations, I will shout out again. Magic Fellow, who is one of my fans in the Discord, and who helped me make those animations. So thank you to everyone. I'm going to log off in a second because, like I said, I don't have my charger, and the computer is let's see, we're at 12%, so we have a little more, but I'm going to log off anyway because I want to get ready to film some cool stuff. Got a good batch of dice to start. Now, of course, I should collect a bit more after I stream because if I really just like hunt practically and efficiently for 10 minutes, well, I don't need 10 minutes, but if I hunt practically and efficiently for like 3 minutes, I could fill this probably. Maybe in 5 minutes. But I won't waste all your time while I'm on my hands and knees grabbing dice. I need to work on some stuff anyway and get my timing ready for today. Something you'll probably see later today will just be a short video that's more of a trailer for the main channel video. So whoever's already seen the main channel video could probably skip the trailer. It's more just for the fact that there's so many more people on this channel and YouTube loves promoting the shorts more than the main ones. Sometimes the shorts drag some random people over to the main channel. So today you'll probably just see a little trailer video or whatever of me trying to get people over to the main channel one that dropped last night-ish. But I might also do another random short I dropped today about some random topic, because I will be filming some random stuff later today. So I'll see what cool content we end up getting. Thank you all so much. Everyone who is leaving good goodbyes, you are all wonderful. I love all of you combo lords so much. Can't wait to teach you a lot more as we continue to grow and learn together. Um, and I think I gotta head out and go work on some stuff. So have a marvelous day. Stay tuned for a factorial episode on the main channel next week and a couple more shorts and streams on this channel in the meantime. And to anyone who wants to join in on my group classes that I'll be starting in December, see if you have the time that's a few hours from now, like sometime around 3 or 4 p.m. on Sundays, 3 or 4 p.m. to me in Pacific time. See if you want to clear some of those in December and find a way to join in on my group classes. Love you all. I will catch you next time and have an awesome combo filled day.